Believe it or not, that's me. It's a long and drawn out story as to how I found myself on the opposite side of the world, in the Canadian Arctic, seemingly at the edge of the world, on another planet even. I was offered the chance to go, and I would have regretted it for the rest of my life if I didn't take it. There were times when I couldn't comprehend the situation myself, times when I could barely hold my camera, times when I stood in partial whiteouts and felt dumbfounded. My professor summed it up perfectly.
All in a day's work.
But of course, it isn't such a hostile place at all. I was joined on the trip by fellow project member and honours student, Jen, who quickly became a good friend with her infectious personality, always smiling and always laughing. What time is it, Jen?
Oh, right now it is 8:38, and it's looking nice and dark. That's about what we're forecasting. Are expecting dark and cold and more dark and cold.
I'd only met Jen a few weeks earlier, together with Colleen and Linnea, who were all working in Arctic research in one way or another. Serious people. Walking onto that plane with Jen and Katrina was surreal, but I definitely felt I was going with a good support crew. It is hard to say when exactly I felt I was in the Arctic. At the time I was in Canada, most of the country was plunged into a severe weather pattern due to a polar vortex, causing temperatures to literally fall to Arctic temperatures as low as minus 35 degrees Celsius in cities like Calgary and Montreal. I felt like I was in the Arctic when I looked out the window of the plane and there was simply no trees at all. Just snow and ice. A pure white landscape with shadows highlighting the features. The landscape from above looks like another planet, inhospitable, harsh and barren. I wondered how humans could live in such a place. It sure is beautiful though. The town of Ulukhaktok in the Canadian Northwest Territories is an Inuit hamlet of around 450 permanent residents. The main street was once the runway for delivering vital supplies. Today, it features more bustling skidoos than planes. Of course, the Arctic is not an inhospitable place at all. Ulukhaktok is a prime example of a small town that is bustling, full of activity, warmth, and acceptance. The simple beauty of the place was astounding. Everything was so alien to me and so photogenic, especially at night. With the night lasting around 20 hours a day, you begin to get used to the strange hours. Hanging out in the street is the norm. Of course, there are times when you go a little crazy though. The locals keep themselves entertained each night through a variety of activities. Something is always on, especially hockey. This goes for wherever you are in Canada. They really know how to play. Katrina brought her own skill set to the town in her own project. She used her decade worth of experience in hairdressing to teach young Inuit valuable skills that are simply not available to them. Meanwhile, I got to work in the Nunnamun Ilihakvia skills workshops. The men meet a couple of times a week to build traditional tools, such as sleds. The Inuit have managed to maintain many traditions, but like many indigenous communities around the world, they're at risk of losing valuable traditional practices. Hunting, sewing and equipment making are still practiced today and remain integral to the community's cultural values. At the Ulukhaktok Centre, the women, using traditional ulu knives, made sealskin shoes. The Nunaman Ilihakvia project focuses on passing these skills from tribal elders to a younger generation. The women chew the leathery sealskin to mould them into shape for the soles of the shoes. They celebrated the finished project with a traditional song to mark the occasion. A defining moment of my time in Ulukhaktok was a friendship we developed with a local elder, Robert Kuptana. Over tea, we mentioned we would love to build a real snow igloo. The very next day, we were out there. Robert led from the front, showing us what to do, and for the following couple of days, we worked together and learnt from a man who had lived his life on the unforgiving land, and somebody who had witnessed his culture shift from a nomadic, subsistence-based society to a Western, cash-based one. While he may have seen many winters, he had lost none of his skills. With only a hacksaw, a large snow knife and a smaller knife, he instructed us, his crew, while he directed the build with the skill and precision of an engineer, dealing with seemingly impossible angles. You really had to watch out where the knife was being thrust. There is no OH&S in the Arctic. A side aspect to the build was that none of the local children came to help. We asked the local school, but the authority that be would not allow students to leave. In a world where traditional knowledge is vanishing, I saw this moment as a school which aims to educate and enlighten its students, metaphorically turning its back on the students' own vulnerable culture. To watch Robert huff and puff, work hard and burn with this desire to teach was inspiring and heartwarming. For him, to teach a couple of Australian and Canadian students, but unable to teach kids of his own community, was baffling. The igloo grew and grew, an inspiring sight and a remarkable use of the environment's one naturally abundant and sustainable resource, snow. The igloo blends into the surroundings, and to me, it represents the resourcefulness, ingenuity, and knowledge of the Inuit culture. Robert, Katrina, Jen and I sat in our igloo and chatted for hours. Robert told us stories of polar bears, hunting, and of the old days. While it was minus 30 degrees outside, it was remarkably warmer inside. We decided not to sleep in our igloo, however, as wolves were constantly seen in the area during the night. We were concerned enough with trying not to freeze, let alone being attacked by wolves. The girls were happy enough with simply building the shelter. By the end of my time in town, I felt like part of the community. There are so many layers to Ulukhaktok, to the people and their relationship with the environment and to the world around them. For me as a journalism and history student, it was exciting to be in a situation which felt so alien. It was a privilege to be allowed to simply be present, as a witness and as a participant, to document and to learn from such an incredible community. The wonderful knowledge and rich life experiences I've learnt while being in Ulukhaktok will stay with me forever. Everyone there has an amazing story to tell, and each person I spoke to surprised me with something new, without ever trying to, and without ever realizing it. For me, the real culture shock wasn't going to the Arctic and living in an Inuit community. It was coming home to the Western world, home to greed, advertising, cars, and so many people. I've now realized that my experience in the Arctic has completely changed my outlook on the world, and it will continue to affect me forever. I've realized it isn't the places you go that affect you. It is the people you meet and the relationships you build. The Arctic and Ulukhaktok is truly the last free wilderness, where life is lived day by day, where the people I met are as varied, as intriguing, and as unique as the environment around them. A life-changing place at the edge of the world.